Hello and welcome to the very first video of showing you how to build a many-to-many relationship using Microsoft Access, which is a relational database. I mean, what you learn in here is going to be applicable to all relational databases, including Oracle, DB2 from IBM, of course, the very famous MySQL. So I'm going to make it very spontaneous and very easy, so you'll be able to follow the major concept, especially how to break down a many-to-many relationship into one-to-many. Before we do anything, let's go ahead and think about it together. I'm going to be concerned with two entities in the real world. These are books, a book and an author. If you notice, the relationship between a book and an author is many-to-many. The reason is that one author can write multiple books. At the same time, a book can be written by multiple authors. So therefore, as you notice, this is create a many-to-many relationship. So we need to know how to create the relationship, because there is no such a thing a building directly many-to-many relationship, so we have to break it into one-to-many. But before we do anything, let's go ahead and follow the general rules of starting clean, meaning we want to build a relational database that will minimize all database anomalies. So if we think about those two entities from the very beginning in a separate way completely, then find a way to link them, that would make it much easier for us to reduce any sort of data redundancy, for example, or a problem with updating our data in one table versus the others, because we want to have consistency for the data. Even if there's any deletion, we might really also emphasize that if we choose to. So thinking about the data in a healthy manner at the beginning of designing a database is really critical in the long run. Let's go ahead and start, first of all, by designing the table initially for the author. So I'm going to click on here, and I'm going to start with the author, and I'm going to call it TBL, author. That would be a good name. And I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to go ahead and start using the giving to me a primary key directly, which is an ID number, author number. I'm going to change this to a text, short text, and I'm going to make this an author ID. So as you notice, and I'm going to go ahead and limit this just for 6 digit, and I'm going to also put the input mask as 00000. Each 0 in the input mask must be represented by an actual digit between 0 and 9. Also, I could add a capital L in order to indicate I want the last entry for the author number to be in actual letter. So I would put, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A. That would be appropriate author ID. Any other form, it's going to actually prevent me from doing that data entry. And we're going to go ahead and say first name, and I'm going to leave that as 30, or change it to 30. And it's a short text. But one thing I wanted to remind you, if you start with thinking about the data as atomic, coming from the word atom, is to really think about breaking the data as much as possible initially when you design a table, because it's much easier to join the first name and the last name of the author than trying to break it. Believe me, in a data normalization, we do go through this aspect of breaking down a full name into a small pieces like first and last, maybe middle and initial, to create atomic piece of data, because you don't want to really have the problem of searching somebody by last name to end up that you're having to deal with the full name. Okay, let's continue with this. So we're going to go ahead and say last name. The same thing I'm going to do at 30 characters. Okay, and we could do all sorts of things, of course, pertaining to the authors. I could put date of birth. I I could you know, say where is the location, which country. Let's go ahead and put the country here, and that would be also like 10 text, 10 pieces of character. It's a text. I could even use the Lookup Wizard. I wanted to type it because I don't have any other data. If my author is basically coming mostly from United States, French, you could say here United Kingdom, something like I'm always reading or looking into. Those are famous of 3 countries, but we could leave this unlimited to the list, so we could get somebody from, let's say, Belgium or Greece, or whoever, whatever country we wanted to enter. So because the Lookup Wizard does help us to reduce the amount of time to enter the data if that data constantly being repeated, like United States is probably going to be most of the author coming from there, so why should I even look for that or enter that manually where it's going to be an option available for me. And anyway, I'm going to make it very, very simple when it comes to the number of the field names. The only thing I wanted to be able to really show you is the fact that the relationship and how to establish it. So I'm going to actually stick with those 4 field names, no more at this moment. And I'm going to go ahead and, of course, always when you change that to the data sheet view, the database is going to ask you to save it. That's a design issue. So now I'm able to go ahead and enter name. Let's go ahead and start with the first name. Let's go ahead and say John and Smith, in the country United States. But I wanted to now take my time to emphasize the author ID. So I'm going to put the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and as I said, A. If I put, for example, a digit in the last character, it's not allowing me, and I hope you're hearing the noise. It's preventing me from continuing to enter anything. As you know, previously we have done the format for the entry through the input mask, 5 digits, 1 letter. So I'm going to go ahead and put the letter. So now I have John Smith as the first record in my table for author. I could go ahead and put another one just for the sake of practice, and we're going to go ahead and say Mary Perez, and we're going to go ahead and say also United States. So we have 2 author now, and we're going to go ahead and close this. As you notice, data entry doesn't actually require saving. It's saved by default. So we're going to go ahead and create the second table, which is going to be called table book. So I'm going to click on the create. I could go directly to the table design, and I'm going to go ahead and start by, you could immediately save it if you want. So if you could go ahead and start creating it, and if you create a table, it allows you to go to the home and design. Either one will do, and save it immediately. Say table book. It's actually books, but I'm going to say table book for now. And as you notice, we get the same feature. I'm going to go ahead and change this to ISBN number, and this is going to be limited to 6 digits. And I'm going to do similar input mask by making all these, actually the first 4 is going to numbers, and the last 2 I'm going to make them digits. I'm sorry, the first 4 digits 0 through 9, and the last 2 capital L, they're going to be actual letter. Alright, so this is going to be the title of the book, and it's going to be a short text. I'm going to allow more room for the title, like 100 characters. And also we're going to go ahead and say genre, and that's going to be also let's say 30, but we're going to go ahead and put some input through the Lookup Wizard, and I'm going to type the data. So I could go ahead and say educational, and I'm going to say here fiction, and I'm going to say here, let's say horror, and let's say here romance. And of course, I will leave the room not to check the limited to the list, just in case you wanted to have to enter something else. Price, okay, that is going to be currency directly. And also, I'm going to go ahead and put the quantity that being ordered at this time of that book, and that is going to be a numerical value. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it as integer. You could leave it as a long integer, but if it's the database going to grow so large, then it's good not to actually have it as an integer. You might leave it as a long integer. And one more thing I'm going to add to the book, whether it's a hardcover or not, So I'm going to go ahead and say this is yes or no. And as you notice, hardcover is a name that has no space. I'm using the camel spacing. It's good to put in the caption as the two separate words so people could read the report later, or even the title of the tables, the forms, even the query. When we look at it, it will be much better to read it. So I'm going to go ahead and go to close this. It allows me to just save the design, and I'm going to say okay, of course. And I'm going to go to the table book and try to enter a couple book for now, just to make sure that is going to be tested. So I'm going to go ahead and put 000 AA for the first book. I'm going to say C programming, and that is actually educational. And let's say here $75. The quantity that was order 100, and it is a hardcover. So I'm going to go to the next one. Notice here if I entered 00001 AA, it will allow me to continue, but you will see it's going to prevent me from going to the next record as a result. Let's say this is Java programming, and that is also educational. That's $100, and it's 200 book were written in order, and it is a hardcover. And notice when I hit the tab key to go to the next one, it says sorry, we cannot really allow you to go to the next line because you chose to enter two ISBN number of the same value, and that is actually violates what we call the integrity of the primary key, because no two primary key could possibly have the same value. I'll say I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and change one of the to something else by hitting escape. And sadly, sometimes you have to delete the whole thing, but lucky for us, we don't have to do it in this version of Microsoft Access. I'm going to go ahead and put AB, and now I could be able to move. I'm going to stop here because I don't want to really overwhelm you with long videos, and we're going to continue to the next video. So far, we have built two tables, but we really have no clue how to build a relationship between them in order for them to see each other, because as you notice, we haven't had any mention to author in the book, and we haven't mentioned anything about the book inside the table author. Thank you. I hope you are going to watch this and enjoy it and practice it more than anything else, and I'll see you in the second video.